Now on the APEC VIP hotline, cutting-edge training for the serious athlete, apecgo.com. Joining us now from texags.com, following the Aggies, Olin Buchanan. How you doing, Olin?
I'm great. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks for coming on. We appreciate it as always. I want to get your take on the Aggie performance against Oklahoma in the Cotton Bowl.
Well, obviously it was dominant. A 28-point win over the 12th-ranked team in the country that came in with 10 wins is pretty impressive. And really, it wasn't even that close. Remember, Johnny Manziel had a would-be touchdown pass that went off of the deflected out of the hands of Malcolm Kennedy and was intercepted in the end zone. That should have been a touchdown. A&M had actually stopped Oklahoma on fourth and goal, if you remember. But Blake Bell tried to run it in, and they stopped him at the 1. But Oklahoma had a false start on the play, and so that enabled them to kick a field goal. I think A&M in the second half was just really got it going and really showed just how dominant they are. Did
you see a blowout coming at all?
Well, no, really. I thought that I thought that A&M would score a lot, but I thought that Oklahoma would too. I felt like A&M's defense played really well. I thought they had a good scheme to give up some passes underneath, but try to make sure they didn't give up a big play, and they played it very well.
I'm saying this very sarcastically. Obviously, Johnny Manziel was obviously very much distracted by all that went around winning the Heisman Trophy, huh?
Yeah, there was a lot of talk about that, the banquets and everything. Coach Sumlin said he felt like the fact that the game was played on the 4th instead of on New Year's Day was, actually a benefit, but it probably wouldn't have mattered. I think once he got back into College Station, he was pretty focused, and he showed what kind of player he is. He's the most dynamic player in college football, and frankly, the Heisman Trophy winners is even though historically they've had some trouble, now that's 4 in a row. 4 years in a row, the Heisman Trophy winners team won the bowl game.
I was talking to another reporter here earlier today, and I call me crazy, but I'm not certain Johnny Manziel right now is not better than RG3 was when he was playing at Baylor.
Well, I think you have to look at it as where Johnny Manziel is right now, as opposed to RG3 when he was a freshman. And I do think Johnny has more talent around him. Mm-hmm. Not that Baylor didn't have a good team. I mean, there was some first-round draft choice, especially a wide receiver on that team, and they're pretty good in the offensive line. But I think when you look at A&M probably has, if not the best offensive line, definitely one of the 3 or 4 best offensive lines in the country. I think Ryan Swope is an outstanding receiver who's going to have a very good NFL career if he doesn't have concussion issues, which he's had in the past. I think Mike Evans is a star in the making as an other receiver, and they have a good running back. So I don't know if I want to say he's better than RG3 was last year. I know his numbers are better in a stronger conference. So if you want to make that statement or that argument, I don't think I would debate it vehemently by any means.
Well, now you got to worry about some of the things that are coming up. And first of all, let's talk about the defense. The defense held Oklahoma to under 5 yards per play in the ball game, and Landry Jones had been, if not a great quarterback, he was a very good quarterback, and that offense had always managed, even in shootouts, to outscore teams. And I don't think the A&M defense gets its due a lot of times because of all the attention that's paid to Johnny Manziel. What do you think?
Well, that's true. And I think, early in the year when you saw some teams put up some big numbers, especially Louisiana Tech with 57, there were some questions about that, about the A&M defense. The A&M was without 3 of its defensive starters in that game, and I think that gets overlooked. But, it's been a team that's again, really good quarterbacks like Tyler Wilson of Arkansas. They've given up some yardage but never gave up a whole lot of points. So it's not... it's not a defense that's elite by any means. It's not like Alabama or maybe Notre Dame. We'll see about that. We don't know how good they are because of the caliber of competition they face. But I think it's a good, solid defense, and they were helped by the fact that they didn't have any long-term injuries to key players, especially in the front 7. And I think Mark Snyder, the defensive coordinator, did an outstanding job this year.
And the loss of Cliff Kingsbury to the offensive staff didn't seem to slow A&M down a bit.
No, and yeah, I'm not surprised with that. Clarence McKinney, the running backs coach, was calling a lot of the running plays anyway, and Kevin Sumlin, he's an offensive coach. He was offensive coordinator at Texas A&M under R.C. Slocum, and he knows what he wants to do. So I think he wouldn't have put Clarence McKinney in the position of calling the plays if he didn't feel like they were pretty much kind of on the same page together, and have the same. He'd worked with Cliff Kingsbury all year, so I obviously felt comfortable with him there.
Okay, now looking ahead, number one, how does Johnny Manziel follow up this season? I mean, how can he possibly be better than he was this year?
Well, the way I look at it is, he kept a couple times he's already broken Archie Manning's record, so now he sets his sights on Archie Griffin.
Wow.
I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility for this kid to win a couple of Heisman trophies. I think coming in next year that the thing that makes him so good and is overlooked, especially after the way he ran for 229 yards against Oklahoma, is he has developed into being a very effective pocket passer. So what happens is, his running ability, so you have to put somebody in a spy, or maybe two guys in a spy situation, but he's such a good pocket passer now that just takes somebody out of coverage, and he has the receivers that can make them pay when they do that. So if his offensive line doesn't betray him, I think that he can. I see no reason why he wouldn't have the same kind of success as his career continues.
What are the chances that Luke Joeckel and Jake Matthews come back next year?
Well, I would be surprised if Joeckel comes back. The fact is that some scouts have projected him to be the first player taken in the draft. Now, I don't know if that's true, but if it is, I think there's only been two offensive tackles taken in the first round in like the last 20 years, Orlando Pace and Jake Long. If you even have that opportunity, you got to go. Now, Jake Matthews, I think, will come back. Number one, he have a chance to play with his brother, Mike, who's going to be the center next year, if everybody, or at least he's projected to be the starting center. And then I think if he comes back, he can move from the right tackle to the left tackle and really perhaps improve his draft status. I know that there are some thoughts that he could be maybe a late first-round pick, maybe a second-round pick, but if he moves over to the left side next year and plays well at A&M at left tackle, he could possibly be a high first-round pick.
Okay, I've had several questions. I think we've talked about this in the past, but I want you to explain it one more time for us because I've gotten the questions on my Facebook page. How is it that A&M has gotten like 33 commitments already for this coming year, recruiting-wise?
Well, first of all, remember they only signed 18 players last year.
Okay.
So they'll have some openings. A lot of those guys are junior college guys that will count toward the 2012 class, and then they'll have some high school guys that'll be early enrollers, which means that they will count toward the 2012 class. So they've got it all figured out. Coach Sumlin knows what he's doing. It's just the way in college football work the numbers. It says he only signed 25 per class, but that's for the 2013 class, and you can if a player enrolls before the January classes start, then he can count toward the previous class.
Okay. And then the other thing, the impact of this season and Johnny Manziel winning the Heisman on recruiting. I mean, we saw just here in the last 24 hours that Jesuit linebacker Jordan Mastrogiovanni is switching his commitment from OU to Texas A&M. I'm guessing we're seeing a lot of that right now.
Yeah, they got a guy from Florida, a wide receiver, who's one of the top-rated wide receivers in the country, commit. And because of that, a receiver from Texas that they had already had committed, he decommitted because they've just done so well at receiver. I think, number one, the success that A&M has had, and then that win over Oklahoma really gets a lot of attention. People, kids see the excitement the atmosphere of that program and then the style of play, and I think they're drawn to that. But then I think Coach Kevin Sumlin's a really charismatic guy. I know a lot of the players we've talked to said he's just the coolest guy. They've been around, the coolest coach they've met, and so he draws a lot of attention. So it looks like A&M finally has the right guy at the right time, and I think that's why you're seeing the Aggies have such a strong recruiting class. I think some of the national recruiting services have them ranked as high as number 7 or 8 in the country.
I know. I was watching the ESPN BCS championship coverage, and Kevin Sumlin's on the set as one of the analysts today, and I'm saying already this guy's a TV natural after he gets out of coaching, so I can only imagine what kind of impression he makes on high school kids.
Well, the Aggies are hoping that's a long time away, but yeah, he's made a huge impression. But not just on the kids. The players that were there. When he took over, he had to sell them on his program and his style and himself, and clearly they bought into it. You saw a lot of seniors that have been through a lot with Coach Sherman, and was a team that couldn't close when they got big wins, and yet they bought into everything that Coach Sumlin had. They embraced what it brought, and they really liked him, and they wanted to play for him. You see the results.
Well, it's been phenomenal, no question. And, of course, Olin Buchanan covering the Aggies for the first year, that had to be all the difference in the world, too.
Oh, yeah, I'd like to take credit for it, right? It's funny. I've actually lived, I've covered the Aggies for several years, but I've only covered them 3 seasons when I actually lived in College Station, and every year they've had at least 10 wins. So I'd like to, maybe they ought to pay my rent.
You're on the payroll, dude. You're on the payroll. One last question. Where's the hunt for the offensive coordinator right now? What do you know about that?
Well, I don't know a whole lot about it. I know that Coach Sumlin said he didn't feel like there were any rush at all. I would not be surprised if Clarence McKinney went ahead and got the promotion. Mm-hmm. But Coach Sumlin said that that they were going to put all their focus on the bowl game, and that they would start thinking about the offensive coordinator position later. So I guess he's starting to that process now. I know that again he's an offensive coach, and I'm sure he has some guys in mind, but. Again, I wouldn't be at all surprised if he just elevated Clarence McKinney, especially after the way the offense played against Oklahoma. Yeah,
that was a pretty good audition. There's no question about that. Well, Olin, thanks very much for coming on with us and giving us a recap on A&M's season and the Cotton Bowl win. I know the Aggie faithful are in heaven right now, and I'm sure they'll continue to be riding high for a while there.
I think you're right with that. I do believe so.
All right. Hey, Olin, Happy New Year. Thanks for coming on with us. Great to talk to you.
Thanks for having me on.
Olin Buchanan from TexAgs.com on Bryan Houston Sports Radio Live on 99.3 Talk FM.